The golden lights of the city glittered below me as I stood on the penthouse balcony, champagne glass in hand, feeling the familiar rush of excitement that always accompanied a film industry event. My boyfriend, Lucas, was mingling with a crowd of rising stars and industry insiders. I watched him with a smile, tall, handsome, every bit the model-turned-actor trying to make a name for himself. I had introduced him to my agency, one of the biggest in the country. They'd been my family for nearly 8 years, guiding my career as I rose from a no-name actress to one of the brightest stars in the business. The CEO, Jonathan, had always been supportive, and I knew I had his respect. It was Jonathan who secured Lucas a small but promising role in a new movie, and I was happy to see him succeeding. But lately rumors had been circulating. There were whispers about Lucas and Amelia, the stunning lead actress he was working with. I dismissed them at first. Lucas and I had been together for 3 years and he was always devoted, or so I thought. Still, it was hard to ignore the way my heart clenched whenever I saw them laughing together on set or heard his phone buzz with a message he was quick to hide. As the evening wore on, I noticed Lucas slipping away from the crowd, his gaze fixed on something, or someone, across the room. Amelia stood by the bar, radiant in a red dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a dream. I clenched my jaw and told myself not to be paranoid. I turned away and tried to lose myself in conversation, but the unease lingered. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the hall, followed by the piercing sound of an alarm. People began to shout, their voices a chaotic jumble of fear and confusion. My heart pounded as I scanned the room, seeing smoke curl upward, thick and suffocating. Fire! Everyone get to the exits, someone yelled. Panic set in. I moved toward the nearest door, but the crowd surged, pushing me back. I tried to search for Lucas and I caught a glimpse of him. He was with Amelia. I think he might have seen me as well, and I was just about to call his name. But then, in one terrible moment, I saw him grab Amelia's hand, pulling her towards safety without even glancing back at me. I stood there, frozen in shock as the flames grew closer. I struggled to breathe as the smoke filled my lungs, and for a moment I thought I was going to be trapped. Suddenly, a hand grabbed mine, strong, firm. It was Jonathan, his face calm despite the chaos around us. He led me out of the danger, guiding me through the smoke until we stumbled into the cool night air outside. I coughed, my eyes burning, and turned to him. "Why did you come back for me?" I asked, my voice hoarse. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Because you're one of our biggest stars," he said simply, but there was something in his eyes that suggested it was more than that. I didn't know what to say. My heart was still racing and my thoughts were tangled. I glanced around, searching for Lucas, but he was nowhere to be found. It wasn't until much later that I learned he had made it out safely, with Amelia by his side. The next day the media exploded with the story. They called Lucas a coward, a traitor for leaving me behind while saving another woman. I sat in my living room watching the news coverage with a hollow feeling in my chest. I had loved him, trusted him, and he had chosen someone else. He tried to call me, over and over. His texts were desperate apologies, excuses about how he panicked and wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't respond. I simply typed a single cold message: "It's over." Lucas showed up at my door the next day, his eyes red-rimmed, pleading. "Please," I panicked. "I didn't mean to leave you behind. I love you, you know that." I stared at him, feeling a cold numbness settle over me. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have abandoned me in that fire," I said quietly. "You made your choice, Lucas. Now I'm making mine." He tried to step inside, but before he could, another figure emerged from behind me. Jonathan, who had come to check on me after the trauma, placed a firm hand on Lucas's chest. "You need to leave," Jonathan said calmly. "She doesn't want to see you." Lucas's face twisted with anger. "What, you think you can just take my place? You think you can protect her now?" He spat, his voice breaking. "She's never needed anyone to protect her," Jonathan said, his voice steady. "But I'm not going to let you hurt her anymore. Now leave, or I'll make sure you never get another role in this country." Lucas stormed off and I stood there watching him go. A part of me wanted to cry, but I felt strangely empty, as if all my tears had dried up. Jonathan stayed with me that night, sitting quietly by my side as I processed everything. He didn't press, didn't try to fill the silence with empty words. He was just there. Days turned into weeks and Lucas's career began to unravel. Jonathan had pulled several key opportunities from him, and the press had a field day with the scandal. Meanwhile, I kept working, focusing on my projects. I thought about Lucas less and less and about Jonathan more and more. One evening, Jonathan came over with takeout, a bottle of wine and a rare warm smile. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his gaze softer than I'd ever seen. I shrugged. "Better. Stronger, I guess." "You've always been strong," he said, a note of admiration in his voice. "I've watched you build yourself up from nothing. I don't think Lucas ever really appreciated that about you." I felt a flush creep up my cheeks. "Why did you save me that night, Jonathan? And don't tell me it was just because I'm your biggest star." He was silent for a moment, then sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Because you matter to me. More than just as a client. I didn't realize how much until I saw you standing there, alone in the fire. I couldn't let you get hurt." My heart skipped a beat and I looked away, unsure of what to say. There was a vulnerability in his words that I hadn't expected, and it scared me. Months passed and we grew closer, sharing late-night conversations and quiet dinners. I found myself trusting him in a way I never had with Lucas. He was patient, never pushing me for more than I was ready to give. One night, as we sat on my couch, the city lights casting a soft glow over the room, he reached for my hand. "I know you're still healing," he said softly, "but I want you to know that I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere." I looked into his eyes and saw something I hadn't seen in a long time: genuine, unwavering care. My defenses crumbled and I leaned in, resting my head on his shoulder. "I'm tired of being strong all the time," I whispered. "You don't have to be," he murmured, wrapping his arm around me. "Not with me."